Hi, and welcome back to The Magic Knitter. I just wanted to share with you guys some images of the beautiful winter sunshine that we had this evening, because the countryside around me was just looking so pretty. Cold, but pretty. I love the way the trees look against the sky on bright evenings like this. And even the small dog enjoyed his walk. He was trotting along, sniffing everything and having a ball. But with the sun disappearing fast, it was getting really chilly. So time to head back indoors and get back to some knitting. Now, tonight we're going to need to take a look at the purl stitch. In our last video, we looked at the knit stitch, which produces rows and rows of a fabric called garter stitch. Now, to be honest, garter stitch isn't a specific stitch, it's just rows and rows of the knit stitch. It would probably be better named garter pattern, but there you go. This is our piece from the last video, and the knit stitch is always the same way around. So as you turn the work, you get the bumps and then the smooth bit, and then a bump and then a smooth bit. But if you want to have your knitting all smooth on one side and rough on the other, you're going to have to learn the purl stitch. So let's take a look at that now. Now, this piece of work here is called ribbing, because it's the border that's usually at the bottom of a hat or a sweater or whatever you want really. Because it's got knit stitches and purl stitches, it's got a bit of stretch. It's springy like this. Now, how does that happen? A lot of people think that the purl stitch is a strange and wonderful animal, but it's not. It's actually the very same thing. Believe me when I tell you, the knit stitch produces smooth on this side with bumps on the back, and the purl stitch does the opposite. The bumps are on the front, and lo and behold, it's smooth on the back. So what purl stitch is, essentially, it's knit stitch backwards. And how do you do it? Let's have a look. When we did our knit stitch, we went in the back of the stitch here and all around, up and off. But the purl stitch is the opposite. You go in the front and up here on top of the needle. Let's look at that again. Holding my wool in my fingers, I'm going to go in the front of the stitch and up. Now what happens? Take your wool from right to left around the tip, and then you go down through the last stitch and off. Again, in the front and up, right to left around the needle. Let's look at that slowly. Right to left, then down and off. Coming up next, I have 2 knit stitches. How do I know this? It's because they are smooth and they have the V. The smooth V is facing me, so I know they're knit stitches. But how do I change from purl to knit? You've got to take your yarn down under the needle and bring it back to the right hand side. Okay? So we're going to go in for a knit stitch, around, up and off. See, it produces a smooth stitch with little V's all the way stacked one on top of the other. In, around, up and off. Now, 2 purl stitches coming next. But my yarn is on the right hand side of the needle. You must bring your yarn underneath to the left. You always do purl stitches with your yarn on the left of the working needle. So watch it again. Finishing the knit, the yarn is on the right. Come under the needle. Then go front to back into your purl stitch. Okay, in the front and up there. Right to left. Down. And off. Front to back. Right to left. Down and off. And don't forget, if you're doing a rib, to move your yarn to the right place as you change stitches. Over to the right and knit 2. Over to the left and purl 2. Now, let's take a look at it. A lot of people get very worried about what stitch am I on? What's coming next? Oh, I've lost my place. I don't know what I'm doing. It's very simple. If the stitch looks like this, smooth with all the little V's stacked up, then that is your knit stitch. Because that is the way knit stitches are turned. They're smooth on the front, rough on the back. Purl stitches are the other way around. Rough on the front and smooth on the back. So if you're doing a rib, you need never worry about what stitch you start on or losing your place in the pattern. Just look at it. This row was starting with 2 purl stitches because they're rough. I know this because they're rough. And it finishes on the same over here. But when I turn the work around, I get to the end of the row and I turn for the next row. Let's have a look at it there. I'm going to be starting on 2 knit stitches. 1 and 2. And then they will be followed by 2 purl stitches. This project is the ribbing for a little hat. And as I get further up, I'm going to change to a fabric called stocking stitch. And you're probably thinking at this stage that there are so many different stitches and so much to learn. Not true. Once you've done your knit and your purl, that's it. You have all the tools you need to keep going. Rib, garter stitch, stocking stitch, they're just different ways of combining the knit and purl stitch to produce a fabric. This is the brim of a hat, and when I think it's long enough, maybe about this much. Depends on how deep you want your brim. I'm going to change over to stocking stitch, and what is that? That is 1 full row of knit followed by 1 full row of purl on the back. And what that will do, it'll give me a smooth fabric, all smooth on the front and rough on the back. And we'll take a look at that when I get as far as it. Okay, as promised, here we have a view of stocking stitch. I finished the rib section that we were working on with the knit and the purls. And then I changed over to do stocking stitch. And what's that? Stocking stitch is when you knit a full row, and then when you turn the work and you're coming back, you purl a full row. And what that does, it puts all the smooth stitches on one side and all the rough on the other. So the reverse looks like this. So you can see it's a very handy to be able to do the purl, because that way you can produce the smooth traditional knitted fabric that is so useful in so many projects. Now, the next question is, how many rows have I done of the stocking stitch? The easiest way to count is to look at the top of one of the purl columns here, and you will see that first little V there is where I start counting. So I go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I've done 6 rows of stocking stitch. And I know that's correct because I started with a knit row. And then row 2 was a purl row. So all the odd rows are going to be knit, and all the purl rows will be even numbers. So 1, 3, 5 are knit rows, 2, 4, 6 are purl rows. Simple to figure it out. Now, so keep practicing your knit and your purl stitches, and you will be able to do so many different projects with those techniques. And check back with me on the Magic Knitter for some more techniques. And if you like this video, don't forget to click like and subscribe down below. Thanks very much.